The Giants wrap up their preseason tomorrow against the Jets. So let's talk Giants with Talkin Giants podcast co-host Bobby Skinner. There he goes. What's up, my guy?
What's going on, man? It's we're hitting that last preseason game to where it's like I'm ready for week one now.
Hey, and usually after that last preseason game, you see moves made, roster cuts, that sort of thing. But Joe Schoen has made moves before the last preseason game. What are your thoughts on the Isaiah Simmons trade, and what moves do you see Joe Schoen making after the final preseason game?
Yeah, the Simmons one kind of came out of nowhere, but you remember back in 2020, the debate was an offensive tackle. Thank God we got Andrew Thomas versus Isaiah Simmons. You know, everyone had their favorites of the tackles. To get him for a 7th-round pick, I think is it's a steal for Schoen. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to turn into a good player because Simmons has not been there's a reason why the Cardinals are letting go of that investment for a 7th-round pick. He's not been a good player in the NFL, but it's not due to lack of athleticism or ability. So you hope that this coaching staff that likes to move their guys around, especially in that linebacker room, are going to be able to get the most out of him, because you do see the flashes of greatness that are in there with Isaiah Simmons, but it's up to them to get it in on a down in, down out basis. But I think for you talked about moves they were going to make. Linebacker was number one, because after Bobby Okereke, you don't have any legitimate rock solid options. So I always thought they were going to go get a linebacker, whether it was a vet like Anthony Barr or some young guy who cleared waivers. But to go get Simmons, who's an elite talent, and put him next to Okereke and behind the front, I think they can get the most out of him, hopefully.
Yeah, and you look at it as a scheme move, because in the Wink Martindale defense, they can play small ball in that sense. Like you say, Okereke, then you can have a Simmons there, and then you see how they have Oduri Jackson in the nickel with the 2 rookie corners on the outside. So you just think of that dime package look, and the NFL has kind of gone to everybody throwing the ball now anyway. So I look at it's a real good scheme move, and like you said, let's see if he could get it going at a second lease at life in terms of his career. All right, we got the Snoopy Bowl on Saturday. The starters probably won't play. So which players do you think need to ball out to not only lock in a starting spot or a roster spot?
Well, I think the biggest battle right now might be for that 4th outside linebacker edge position with O'Shane Ximines and Timon Fox. I mean, they didn't want to bring back O'Shane. They signed him a week after the draft because they weren't able to claim or get anybody in the draft. And he's just not performed through 4 seasons. Even though he's had, ample opportunities. And then Timon Fox, I think, has been outperforming him in the preseason. And obviously he's a second-year player, an undrafted guy they had last year. And then safety, Javarius Owens, the 7th rounder out of Houston. I loved him. I think he should have went higher in the draft. I think he might be taking Bobby McCain's job, who was, a vet in the league, although I do think both those guys end up making it. But it's that outside linebacker spot and safety. And then wide receiver, you could say it's going to be interesting, but I don't know how much this game would impact that.
Interesting. So what grade would you give the Giants preseason so far, and why?
Well, the offense, I want to say A, but on the preseason games, or I guess the preseason, they've been good on defensively compared to some of the practices, and that speaks to the offense. I think the offense makes it an A, because we were talking pre-show, Brandon. Why I don't think it's a total overreaction to that first team last week with Daniel Jones is because me and you have been at the practices. We've seen it day in, day out, where it got to a point where it's is the defense going to win a day, because that's how efficient Daniel Jones and Waller and all the other weapons they have were. So you got to think it's an A. If there was, the questions that you had for them, a lot of them being answered. Evan Neal didn't look perfect, but he sure looks like he's improved from last year, and that's a big question mark. So I'll say B+, just because I wanted to see a little more from the defense. Actually, you know what? A, damn it.
Forget it. Yeah, let's just go with it. Let's go with A on that. I feel like Rex Ryan, a remix Rex Ryan, to say the Giants have won the preseason up to this point. Let's get everybody out healthy on Saturday. But
even defensively, we talked about how they got no turnovers in camp. Well, Pinnock had an interception on the first play versus the Lions. Belton got one later on. Kayvon had a sack and a QB hit while he was not really doing much in the camp. So I guess some of those things that you worried about, they did well against other teams.
Evan Neal looking better, the run defense looking better. So everything has just gotten better. Now, like you said, let's just get to week one. All right, my man, appreciate you hopping on with us.
No doubt.